What can you plant in August in the Pacific Northwest? And we're really at the height of summer right now. The temperatures are in the 90s or the low 100 degrees. So it doesn't necessarily seem obvious that you'd be wanting to plant cool, loving crops that work well in the fall. But with the decreasing day length, because from summer solstice, the longest days, to fall equinox, where it's 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night, the plants are going to be slowing down in growth, and especially after the equinox. So you need to get the growth happening between now and the fall equinox. So we have about 6 weeks. So right now would be time to be seeding your greens. Love the heat and will carry you into winter. And remember that your fall garden feeds you for a really long time. The summer garden is wonderful and exciting because there's all these kind of things that we love, like sweet corn and tomatoes, cucumbers, and the like. But here, at least in southwestern Oregon, we're only now starting to get those types of crops, our first tomatoes and first cucumbers, and they'll go to early October. So that's really feeding us for 2 months. And if we can and preserve that abundance, then it'll carry us through the winter. So that is important. I'm not trying to downplay the summer garden. But as far as going out into your garden and harvesting, what you plant this fall might be feeding you all the way until April and May of next year. And I'm not talking about freezing or canning or drying. So the things like your dark leafy greens, kale, Swiss chard, collards, lettuces, spinach. It's time to plant all those things right now. It might be a little bit early for spinach, but you can go ahead and try because we never know what kind of fall we're going to have. Sometimes here it begins to rain about the fall equinox and it gets cool, and then you're glad that you planted lettuce and spinach. Other times we have more of an Indian summer where we have hotter temperatures later into the summer and early fall, and those things might bolt. So it's just part of the rolling the dice of the mystery of all that work. So remember your dark leafy greens. And I'm usually seeding these things in the shade outside my greenhouse. So if you have a spot under a shady tree, you do not need to be seeding these things in a greenhouse. So right now I've got little baby broccolis and lettuces coming up and some kale as well. And I'm going to be starting spinach and Swiss chard soon. So the other thing that you'd want to start, and you need to get on it quick, you could have done it in the end of July, but it's generally not too late as long as you grow earlier maturing varieties, is the heading brassicas. So that's things like broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage. It's too late to do Brussels sprouts. You needed to start those in June because they take about 120 days to mature before the short days of fall come on. But if you start broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower now, chances are you're going to get nice heads, and then you'll be harvesting those through the fall and they'll be able to stay in your garden. And then another category, so again, those I'm seeding in trays and then I'll be transplanting out. And that's one way you can dance around these hot days of summer and not need to be watering quite so much in your garden trying to direct seed those types of things. And in general, the heading brassicas do better, in my experience, doing seeding in trays and then transplanting out. So a third category, so you can see how we're in a pattern here. In the fall, you do much the same things as you do in the spring because we have cooler weather bracketing our hot summer. So, but the timing is a little bit trickier in the fall. So that's why you want to kind of map this out. So here we are again, early August. And we can also do, this third category is the root vegetables. So the primary ones that you need to get going right now are carrots and beets because they take longer. I think it's a little too late to start spinach. Not spinach, parsnips. Because they take so long to mature. You wanted to have started those in the spring and just let them grow over the summer and roll right into fall. But carrots and beets, if you can prepare the soil well, and I seeded mine just a few days ago, and I'm watering probably 3 times a day. And I just have one of those little, it's a manual electric timer. It's almost like an egg timer you'd use in your kitchen. And I'll twist it to a half hour and I'll just run a sprinkler for a half hour. And as I walk by, then I don't need to remember to turn it off. But you want to keep that soil moist because, in particular, carrots, as a general rule of thumb for all seeds, you plant them twice as deep as they are long. So carrot seeds are pretty small, maybe 1/8 of an inch, so you're only planting about 1/4 inch deep. Beets are a little larger, so you're planting about 1/2 inch deep, so the soil doesn't dry out as quickly. But if you're only planting 1/4 inch deep, that soil dries out super quick when it's hot temperatures outside. Some people, if you're on a small scale, you can get away with, if you can get some organic burlap sacks from a coffee roaster or something, you can cut them so they're like a blanket and lay them flat over your carrots, and that helps hold some moisture in there. But you need to pull them off as soon as they sprout because otherwise they'll die under there. And make sure your soil's well prepared and not too clumpy, or you want a nice fine till so that you can ensure you're planting at the proper depth. And then, keep them moist growing into the fall, and then you'll have beautiful roots. Other root vegetables that you can start, but it's less critical to plant right now, is radishes, rutabaga, and turnips. And a lot of people don't grow those crops, but they serve a really important role. Radishes are just quick and they give you food quickly. So I like to use radishes if I've got a little gap in between plants, or even if I'm transplanting, let's say, cabbage or broccoli on like an 18 or 24 inch spacing. I can seed some radishes in between, and they only take 3-4 weeks, and then you've got food and you're making space once the broccolis or cabbage get bigger. You're removing those radishes. Turnips and rutabaga take longer to mature, but the beauty of those is they really will hang in the garden, and you don't have to worry about them getting woody. Whereas radishes, if you seed radishes right now, early August, chances are they'll actually bolt, and then they'll get woody and kind of pithy in the inside. So you need to harvest those quickly. But a turnip, you can let it just keep growing, and you can get softball-sized turnips or rutabagas that will hang through the fall, and then you'll be eating them all winter long. Whether you're leaving them in the garden, but if you have gophers or you're worried about sometimes field mice will nibble on them, or slugs, you can pull them up and put them in a root cellar, or like you could put them in a plastic bag in your fridge, but sometimes they'll get a little slimy depending on the humidity. We have a walk-in cooler and they work really well in there. And learn how to use those kind of things in your food, because something like steamed mashed turnips with butter is an old staple for many people, but a lot of us didn't grow up eating those kind of things. And rutabaga is a whole other animal. And I'll just mention it because it's worth, like I mentioned parsnips earlier, another really great fall crop to have. There's kind of 2 branches of it, is either celery, which we started in the spring, and it grows so slowly, but will go into the fall with nice stalks of celery, or its cousin, celeriac, which it was eaten for the root. But again, that takes a long time, and you needed to have started it in the spring. And I think what applies to all these fall planted crops, the really fall crops seeded in late summer, because we're in late summer right now, is that you want good fertility. So make sure to use some compost in your soil, because you want quick growth, because you need them to grow quick enough to size up. So when we go past fall equinox, there's not much growth past then, but they'll continue to grow slowly. So having some compost is going to provide the nutrients that you need, so you have an abundant fall garden. So there you go. There's what you can do here in August. And if you know that you have a little bit longer season, or you have a greenhouse, a little honorable mention would be to seed some fall peas. I planted mine at the end of July, and I didn't plant much. I don't mess around with the pole types like sugar snap because they take longer, and I don't want to have to trellis them, so I only grow the bush variety. So the other day I planted Sugar Ann and Sugar Daddy, and they'll just be a bush variety, and hopefully they'll work out, and we'll get to enjoy some peas this fall. So hopefully you're have some garden space and you're looking forward to it. That's why we did this video here in this buckwheat, because we're about to incorporate this cover crop here, and then we have all this space to plant fall crops that for us will grow seed for next year. So hope your gardens are abundant and your family's healthy and happy.